How did Noah's Ark actually work? This question has kept scientists awake at night for centuries, and although it seems impossible, new discoveries are revealing how this ancient vessel could have worked. So today we will show you how it really worked, from how it floated to how they kept the animals under control and how the people who lived there survived emotionally. But before we start, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more videos about ancient mysteries. Also stick around until the end, because we have a big surprise for you. Construction. The first miracle of Noah's Ark was its construction. You see, according to Genesis 6:15, Noah's Ark had dimensions that even modern naval engineers are impressed by. About 135 meters long, 22.5 meters wide and 13.5 meters high. But the real feat here was how it was built. The Bible says that it was constructed by only 8 people over 120 years. The choice of material also makes us wonder how this boat didn't rot. We all know that wood is a noble material, but it is also extremely fragile when faced with the passage of time. The thing is, the Bible talks about gopher wood, which some believe is the same as cypress wood. However, other scholars believe that the term gopher wood refers to a type of tree that no longer exists, such as the Lebanese cedar. Today, experts say that the wood used in the construction of the ark was probably from the African blackwood tree, since the Bible says that the wood came from the mountains of Ararat. What is certain is that the trunks were about 25 centimeters thick and about 3 meters long, and the structure of the interior of the ark was extremely advanced, with transverse and longitudinal beams in addition to pillars. In addition, the entire internal structure was covered with a thick layer of pitch, which made the ark waterproof. That is, the secret of the ark's construction was in the wood used and the fact that it had an advanced structure that made it rigid and impermeable. But how many animals did the ark hold? According to the book of Genesis, Noah took 2 of every kind of animal, 1 male and 1 female. And if we consider that there are about 8 million animal species today, just imagine the number of creatures on board the ark. But wait, don't get too excited yet. The word kind does not refer to animal species as we understand them today, but rather groups of similar animals. For example, all dogs belong to the same kind, even though there are dozens of breeds. So, to better understand, we will use the Book of Nature's Catalogue, which lists about 9,000 kinds of animals. If we divide the number of animals on the planet today by the number of kinds, we get about 900 specimens per kind. But it's important to remember that these numbers are not exact. They're just estimates. Besides that, young animals were taken to the ark, since adults would need much more food and space. But then, how did the waste of thousands of animals get out of the ark? Considering that the ark had enough food to last for months, it's easy to imagine the amount of animal dung produced every day. Fortunately, the ramparts of the ark had a slope so that the waste would drain into a series of central reservoirs. This way, the excrement didn't pile up inside, and the floor remained clean. By the way, speaking of floors, do you remember those pictures you saw of the ark's interior that showed perfectly straight walls? Well, that's not quite right. You see, the walls weren't straight, but sloped towards the center of the ark where large tanks were located. Thus, in addition to serving as a toilet, the inclined ramps also helped to move the animals from one side of the ark to the other. When it was time to feed them, the reservoirs mentioned before would then be emptied outside the ark. But how exactly was the food distributed? It's very likely that the food was placed in ceramic containers, which were then automatically dosed to ensure that each animal received the right amount of food. This would have been the only way to ration the food supply. Did Noah and his family have fresh water to drink during the 40 days and 40 nights of rain? You bet they did. You see, the roof of the ark had gutters to collect rainwater, which would then pass through a labyrinth of channels inside the vessel. These channels would filter the water with layers of sand and charcoal to make it drinkable. Of course, we can't forget about the air inside the ark. So did the animals and humans on board suffer from lack of oxygen or the buildup of toxic gases? Not a chance. You see, the air inside the ark was automatically renewed thanks to the temperature difference between the inside and outside of the vessel. Since the inside was darker and warmer, convection currents were created that caused the air to naturally circulate. In other words, a hot air balloon effect was created. To improve ventilation, a top opening was made and 10 vertical ducts were created on the sides of the ark. This way, hot air rose through these ducts and was replaced by fresh air from the outside, thus ensuring constant movement of air inside the vessel. But what about lighting? How did they light up the ark at night? There is no doubt that the ark was equipped with primitive oil lamps, which were probably hung from the ceiling. They would have been made from clay or ceramic and fed with olive oil. Did you know that every detail of the Ark's functioning was carefully planned to ensure the safety of those on board? For example, Noah and his sons would have had a disciplined daily routine to ensure the proper functioning of the vessel. Every morning, they would mark the day on a wall with a primitive calendar. Then they would feed the animals, check the condition of the hull, clean the Ark, prepare meals, check the water level, among other tasks. Meals would probably have been prepared over a fire made with stones heated in a forge, since it wouldn't be possible to make a fire inside the Ark without oxygen. But how did the crew survive psychologically? Imagine being trapped in a box with thousands of animals for months. The noise alone would be enough to drive anyone crazy. The constant cacophony coming from the animals in heat. The crashing of waves against the hull and the howling wind during storms would have reached up to 85 decibels. Just to give you an idea, this is about the same noise level as an industrial plant. To cope with this noise, they may have needed to isolate themselves in certain parts of the ship, such as the upper deck, which would have been quieter. Besides that, the emotional survival of those on board would have depended on faith, discipline, and organization. Finally, let's answer the question that is on everyone's mind. Did Noah and his family bring all human genetic diversity aboard? The answer is yes and no. After the flood, God allowed humans to eat meat, which marked a radical change in diet. Before the flood, humans probably ate fruits, vegetables, grains, and nuts. Meat consumption would have been restricted for two reasons. First, killing an animal would require an extra human effort, and second, an extra source of nutrition was not necessary. But after the flood, the world would never be the same again. Humans now had access to a new source of nutrition, which resulted in increased brain development and thus intelligence. We have compiled a list of the most interesting facts about the Ark to make it easier for you to understand how this incredible vessel really worked. Let's check it out. Animal count: 6,800, far less than the imagined millions based on 1,000. Kinds with 1 or 7 pairs each. Waste volume: several tons produced daily, managed with sloped drainage and central reservoirs. Noise level: over 85 decibels, like an industrial plant, highlighting the psychological challenge. Duration: 370 days afloat, requiring a fully self-sufficient system without modern technology. And that's it. Now you know how Noah's Ark really worked. Share your opinion with us. Do you think the Ark actually existed? And if so, do you think it was built by humans or was it divine intervention? Be sure to leave a comment below. Also, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. Thanks for watching. See you next time.